The world watched in silence for more than a decade as one of Hollywood's brightest stars appeared to drift farther and farther from his only daughter. And now, at last, the hush has broken. The reality of their separation felt far more weighty than anyone could have ever imagined. Formerly known as Suri Cruise, Suri Null was born into a life of celebrity that she never sought. Even when a child simply wished to live like any other child, she was easily recognized everywhere she went. Growing up behind tall walls and away from the turmoil of cameras, she was surrounded by secrets that were too enormous for a little child to comprehend. And at the age of 19, she is at last speaking, not with words, but with her audacious decisions in life. Every action she takes seems to be a silent message to her father, and everyone is in complete awe. The picture-perfect family that once graced red carpets has long since vanished, leaving a tale full of heartache and unsolved mysteries. This is the unspoken reality of a daughter who grew up observing her father from a distance and a father who watched her gradually disappear from his life. It started off like a fairy tale from Hollywood. The industry was ignited when Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes first met in 2005. They clicked right away. Before the romance had a chance to breathe, the headlines erupted due to their evident chemistry. At the age of 26, Katie was radiant because of her Dawson's Creek notoriety. A young actress who exuded charisma, ambition, and a captivating energy that won everyone over. One of the most influential figures in Hollywood, Tom is already 43 years old and has decades of blockbuster success under his belt. Jerry Maguire, Mission Impossible, and Top Gun. He was a member of the Hollywood elite. This was more than just another celebrity obsession for Katie. For her, it was destiny. She had expressed her desire to marry Tom Cruise to 17 magazine years prior to their meeting. The majority dismissed it as a harmless fantasy. However, something crazy happened when life forced them to confront each other. According to reports, Tom turned to his colleagues and said, "I'm going to marry her." From then on, things proceeded quickly. Nearly too quickly. In a few weeks, every news outlet was talking about their romance. They quickly became inseparable, holding hands in Rome, laughing together, and acting as though no one else existed because of their chemistry, which lit up every space they went into. Even the well-known recluse Tom Cruise appeared to have been thrown headfirst into an uncontrollable tornado. Every look, every smile, every moment spent in public exuded passion. However, something more profound was simmering behind all that glitz. Something nobody anticipated. The world stopped and stared at that moment. When Tom Cruise walked on the Oprah Winfrey Show and abruptly leaped onto the sofa while yelling, "I'm in love," it became one of the most talked-about moments in TV history. It was an unforgettable scene. Everyone was in disbelief. Some saw it as an expression of sincere, passionate love, while others felt it was just plain weird. However, one thing was evident. Nobody was able to turn away. Their love story peaked shortly after that incident that made headlines. Their daughter Suri was born on April 18, 2006, and she quickly came to represent their brief affair. Tom characterized her as a wonderful miracle and called her birth the happiest day of my life. However, there was a twist in that lovely chapter that connected to the basis of his world. He was devoted to Scientology. Katie, who was raised in a small Toledo Catholic community, was abruptly forced to adapt to a very new world that was governed by hierarchy, secrecy, and rigid religious systems. According to reports, Scientology practices were followed during her pregnancy and delivery, including the well-known silent birth, in which no one in the room was permitted to talk while the baby was being born. The belief was that the infant should be born in total peace. In order to keep an eye on the pregnancy from home, Tom even went so far as to purchase a personal ultrasound machine, which caused a lot of controversy in Hollywood. It appeared excessive and even domineering to outsiders. But for Tom, it was all about loyalty and defending his expanding family. For him, love was the source of everything. He just expressed it in a very passionate way. Later that year, they got married, and their wedding appeared to be something out of a royal fairy tale. It was held in the magnificent 15th-century Odiscali Castle in Bracciano, close to Rome, and it was simply amazing. According to reports, the celebration cost more than $3 million. Katie looked stunning in a special Giorgio Armani gown, and Tom was beaming with pride next to her. It was one of the most spectacular weddings Hollywood has ever seen, with celebrities like Jennifer Lopez, Will Smith, and David and Victoria Beckham on the guest list. Not everyone was cheering, though, even as the flashes went off and the pair grinned broadly. From the beginning, Katie's parents, Martin and Kathleen Holmes, were quietly concerned. Because they were devout Catholics, they were unable to fully comprehend the new world their daughter had entered and were afraid it may draw her and their granddaughter into a lonely situation. Unfortunately, their worries weren't unwarranted. The once glittering love story started to seem different behind the cameras, more controlled, guarded, and far less loose. What had begun as passion was now encased in regulations, limitations, and the stress of adhering to a strong ideology. Tom genuinely felt that his actions were motivated by love and purpose. However, Katie gradually started to feel confined in that same setting. It was also the beginning of a life that would never resemble any other Hollywood upbringing for young Suri. The Cruz Holmes family continued to look flawless to the public by 2007, traveling the world in private jets, posing for glossy magazine covers, and gliding down red carpets. They were considered the epitome of the ideal family. The world was unaware of the depth of the fissures that were already beginning to emerge beneath that glossy exterior. Friends began to gossip about how seldom Katie went anywhere by herself. Every time she went outside, someone was there, usually someone from the church or Tom's social group. They didn't appear to be bodyguards in the conventional sense. They proceeded silently, disappearing into the distance while continuously observing. Eyes seemed to follow her every step, whether it was a casual supper or a quick run for coffee. One evening over dinner with journalist Maureen Orth, Katie's remarks sent shivers down the spine. She grinned courteously when fans came up and asked for a quick picture, but she uttered something that surprised everyone. "Yes, we don't spend much time outside." Although it sounded benign, people who were aware of how controlled her surroundings were recognized exactly what she meant. Tom, on the other hand, continued to be as passionate and self-assured as ever, a guy who was totally committed to his faith and unwavering in his convictions. He rose to prominence as one of Scientology's most vocal and visible advocates, openly defending the religion and ardently advancing its doctrines. It was more than simply religion to him. It served as his discipline's motivation, structure, and purpose. However, Katie started to feel as though she couldn't transcend that same framework without losing herself. From the sidelines, her parents watched with increasing alarm as their daughter's radiant energy seemed to fade behind well-posed pictures and courteous smiles. As time passed, it became evident that this fairy tale was not meant to endure. The enigmatic framework surrounding their daughter's new existence had long unnerved Katie's parents. They were uneasy for some reason because everything focused around secrecy. Additionally, the frequency of their trips decreased over time. They were no longer sure how to get in touch with her. It seemed as though their daughter was gradually sliding behind an impenetrable wall. Friends also saw it. Katie started to sound odd, almost staged. She would frequently say the same things about her spouse, such as, "He's amazing," "He's wonderful," as if she were trying to persuade herself that everything was all right. She was gradually losing the once bright spark that had made her such a beloved performer. In the meantime, Bella and Connor, Tom's adopted children with Nicole Kidman, were already fully committed to Scientology and adhered to its teachings. Tom thought it was only fitting that Suri, his youngest daughter, would be raised in the same religion. However, that thought made Katie feel as though she was losing both her independence and her children. She wasn't prepared to cede that level of authority, particularly to a system that she still didn't fully comprehend. She started to retreat as a result. Quietly, carefully, and with great care. The murmurs had begun by 2010. According to rumors, Katie felt imprisoned and forced into a life that no longer felt like her own. She started spending more time in New York, getting back in touch with old friends, and skipping certain church-related events. Far from the rigid routine that characterized her Los Angeles life. However, this wasn't the distance behind the scenes. It was getting ready. Katie wasn't mindlessly wandering. She was gathering data, formulating a strategy, and meticulously laying the groundwork for something she couldn't afford to fail. The fissures were evident by 2011. Her interviews were shorter, her public smile appeared tighter, and her body language conveyed a lot. Once noted for her effortless charm, the woman now appeared to be cautiously stepping through glass. People were unaware that she was getting ready to go each time she was seen gripping her daughter's hand a bit too tightly. Hollywood went silent on June 29, 2012. Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes have formally filed for divorce. The timing was startling. It struck him like a wave he never anticipated, only days before his 50th birthday. It appeared abrupt to the outside world. However, insiders soon discovered that this was not a snap decision. It was strategic, well thought out, and necessary. In a later interview, Tom said that he didn't anticipate it. "It hit me hard," he whispered softly. "Life can do that to you." Katie had already carried out one of the most meticulously orchestrated breakups Hollywood had ever witnessed while he was absorbing the heartache. She walked as though she were aware that everyone was watching her. She changed phones, hired new security, and even replaced employees she thought may report back to influential people in Tom's inner circle. Each stage was planned out like a secret operation. Behind the scenes, her father, Martin Holmes, had a significant role. A reputable attorney with a keen mind and composure under duress, he turned into the covert tactician, directing her every action. He had assisted in drafting the couple's prenuptial agreement years prior, and now it served as her passport to freedom. Nor was Katie's decision to file in New York made at random. Parents who could demonstrate they were safeguarding their child's welfare were known to be given preference under the state's custody statutes. While Tom was gone in Iceland filming Oblivion, she filed in total secrecy, claiming New York as her legal ground. He learned about the news from the headlines, just like everyone else. It was a terrible shock to a man who had spent his entire life keeping control over every aspect. However, it wasn't long before the true reason for her timing became apparent. Her motivation was not retaliation, according to court documents. It served as defense. She was concerned that her kid may lose her innocence too young, so she wanted to make sure she grew up free, safe, and away from such influences. Katie's primary objective was very evident: total authority over Suri's education, health, and spiritual development, as well as full custody. It has nothing to do with money or reputation. It has to do with freedom. She wished to ensure that her daughter would not be drawn into a system that she had not selected. Later, some former Scientologists revealed that Katie genuinely feared that when Suri grew older, she might be sent to one of the church's rigorous training programs. Katie was desperate to protect her daughter at all costs and was unwilling to take any chances, regardless of whether that was ever a serious plan. Ultimately, her strategy was successful quickly. In just 11 days, the legal dispute that may have taken months to resolve was resolved. After both parties came to an agreement, the divorce was quietly formalized. According to reports, Tom consented to pay almost $400,000 in child support annually until Suri reached 18, in addition to extra expenses for medical care and schooling. However, Katie didn't care about the money. It was never the case. Legal, physical, and emotional isolation was what she really desired. She desired to sever the bonds that had bound her to that meticulously constructed universe. The day following the settlement, Katie and her daughter abruptly disappeared from Los Angeles. No big statement, no farewell, no news announcement. When the paparazzi eventually caught up with them, they were photographed strolling around New York City's Chelsea neighborhood in a composed manner, holding hands, grinning subtly, and, for the first time in years, not being surrounded by bodyguards or suspicious looks. The image captured the essence of freedom. Katie Holmes has accomplished the almost unimaginable after living under constant scrutiny. She had fled the most oppressive shadow in Hollywood and left with her kid to start a new life on her own terms. Katie's eyes conveyed the weight of everything she had endured, and she appeared exhausted. However, this time was different. At last, she appeared liberated. As she strolled hand in hand with her daughter through the streets of New York, the same woman who had previously hidden behind fake grins was now beaming once more. For the first time in years, there was serenity instead of a security force and cameras following them around. Distance brought that tranquility. A fresh start from a past that had previously engulfed her. Suddenly, there was no sign of the guy who had formerly praised his young daughter on red carpets and referred to her as his miracle. Not out of drama, not out of rage, just gone. And a completely new story started in that peaceful area. One that was beyond the control of any organization, celebrity, or spotlight. Two entirely distinct worlds emerged with the split. Tom's daughters. During a rare legal deposition in 2013, Tom was asked one of the most awkward questions of his life. Had Katie fled to shield her daughter from Scientology? Calling it offensive, he pushed back. However, he later acknowledged that it was one of the claims. That little statement turned into a bombshell. The closest he ever got to admitting what had truly caused his family to drift apart. According to rumors that same year, he had only seen Siri once following the divorce. A brief private visit with a calm conclusion. Nothing after that. No images, no definite encounters, no father-daughter trips, just silence. Tom immersed himself further in his work. The eagerly anticipated Top Gun sequel, world tours, Mission Impossible blockbusters, and those crazy antics that made headlines each year. As he clung to soaring jets, leaped from airplanes, and hung over cliffs, fans applauded. The ultimate hero of action. However, there was one role he couldn't seem to go back to behind the bright lights. Being a father. Katie, meanwhile, was constructing something tangible. A calm, balanced existence for her kid in New York. She took her to dance classes, parks, and quaint small cafes where nobody was interested in fame, and she enrolled her in a private school in Manhattan. They used those easy routines as a shield. Siri was friendly, imaginative, and surprisingly normal for someone who had grown up in a chaotic environment, according to friends. Katie had accomplished the seemingly impossible. She protected her daughter from the machinery of Hollywood. There were no media appearances, no magazine covers, and no red carpets, just living. Suri also started to resemble her mother as she got older. The same serene vitality, the same kind gaze, and that tranquil assurance that didn't require approval from others. However, she would only smile courteously and shift the topic any time her father's name was mentioned. Silence can sometimes speak louder than words, as she had discovered at a young age. Tom never brought her up again in public. Insiders claim that he kept up his support for her health and education. But nothing more than that. No fresh images, no public appearances, and no obvious relationship. Their worlds seemed to have wandered to opposing extremities of the cosmos, too far away to reach but close enough to recall. Then came the change, the turning point that demonstrated she was prepared to be independent. Suri was more than just Tom Cruise's daughter by 2021. She was becoming Siri, a young lady forging her own identity. She went to the renowned LaGuardia High School of Music and Art in New York, which served as the inspiration for the film fame. She demonstrated her mother's creative energy by acting, singing, and directing short films with her classmates. Then there was a minor but significant shift that went viral on the internet. She was identified under her mother's middle name, Suri Noel, rather than Suri Cruise, in her senior year musical, The Addams Family. It was a daring move that expressed everything without using words. It was renewal, not rebellion. The same name, Suri Noel, was on the official list when she graduated in June 2024. That day, Tom wasn't present. According to reports, he was in London for a concert thousands of miles away. And that disparity struck a deep chord with those who recalled the proud parent from 2006. But as her daughter made her first steps toward maturity, Katie was sitting among the parents, applauding and grinning through tears. That was an unadulterated, human, and raw moment. Just a mother watching her daughter shine, no designer entourage, no security detail. Siri, a fashion design major at Carnegie Mellon University, moved into her dorm later that summer. Like any typical mother, Katie assisted her daughter with moving in by hauling boxes, arranging clothes, and setting up her new area. No chaos, no flashing cameras, just two people embarking on a new chapter together. Life had completed a full circle by the fall of 2025. Reuniting with her former Dawson's Creek co-star Joshua Jackson, Katie went back behind the camera directing a new movie titled Happy Hours. And Suri arrived on set one afternoon. She appeared composed and self-assured at the age of 19. A white tank top, khaki jeans, red sneakers, and the calm strength of someone who had weathered the storm and emerged stronger. She wasn't even recognized by the majority of folks on set. She no longer walked like the daughter of a famous person. She exuded a sense of ownership over her narrative. Her message was unambiguous. She was no longer living in the shadow of anyone. She was free, self-reliant, grounded, and serenal. Then came a moment that made everyone's hearts melt. She was seen sitting silently on a stoop in New York in October 2025, her head in her hands and obviously upset. Katie showed up in an Uber a few minutes later, sat next to her, and put an arm around her shoulders. They grinned, had a quiet conversation, and went to fetch pastries. It was simply another mother-daughter moment to strangers. However, it meant everything to those who knew their story. Suri, now 19, is a second-year college student who is making music, learning fashion, and gradually forming her own personality. Her relationship with her father is still strained, despite rumors that he still pays for her medical and educational expenses. Nevertheless, no one has seen them together in public for over 10 years. Tom Cruise is getting ready to shoot scenes in orbit with NASA and SpaceX, continuing to push the boundaries of filmmaking. Now, the man who took over Hollywood wants to take over the stars. Even he might not be able to overcome the emotional gap that exists between him and his daughter. Katie never allows animosity to grow, according to those who know her well. Rather, she concentrates on being thankful for her daughter's fortitude, their tranquility, and the life they have created from the ground up. She describes Suri as an amazing person and claims that her biggest pride isn't in her success or notoriety. It's seeing her child develop into her own. Suri's tale is still one of love, grief, and quiet resiliency despite her new name, direction, and independence. The world has been following their adventure for 19 years. Similar to a film that is missing its last scene. The daughter prioritizing peace over legacy and the renowned actor pursuing greatness. One question remains as Siri Noel creates her own reality. Will she ever allow her father to return? Or has the stillness been prolonged beyond repair by time? Can love heal the wounds caused by fame? Please share your opinions below. Do you believe they will ever get back together? Or is this chapter permanently closed? If you were moved by this story, hit the like button. For more impactful Hollywood deep dives, subscribe. Show this video to someone who can recall their own story. Remember to leave a comment with your ideas as well.